future, shattered dreams, end of times ain't what it seems.
Hello friends, this is Sam Chaney reporting for Weaponized News. Today, August 1st, 2025. Thank you for joining us on this Friday edition of Weaponized News. Very special show today. We have the state of California versus CalExit. The new state, or secession, is essentially what we're going to be debating today, going over a bunch of policy, feasibility. Can any of this stuff happen actually in reality? We're going to try to sort it all out and get it from both sides here. I myself personally am an anarchist. I don't even believe in government. I realize that that's not feasible and practical, and the normie public mind is not there yet. Someday maybe they will be, but it feels like we're a long way off for that. And these two options are only viable solutions, sort of a bloody revolution, which no one wants. But it's just everywhere you look. We need reform in this corrupt system that we find ourselves in here in 2025 in the state of California, all over the nation, but we're focusing here at home in California today. So we have Marcus Ruiz-Evans from CalExit and Paul Reyes from the New California State Project. Let's go ahead and do a segue of our Lord and Savior here in California, Gavin Newsom. We're all very proud to have him as our leader and doing insane tyranny against us. He's, what does he say here? He put this out yesterday. And by the way, Gavin Newsom's an info warrior. He's all over the interwebs, on podcasts, directly replying to people on X. So he's now become an info warrior out there with his own podcast as well. He says the Trump presidency ends next year if we take back Congress. And there he is with his left-right Republican Democrat games, and we wouldn't have it any other way for the normies out there. Here's our segue video, and we'll bring on both gentlemen and get into this debate.
I think there's a growing recognition in this country, not just with Democrats, independents, but also Republicans, that de facto the Trump presidency ends in November of next year if the American people are given a fair chance and a voice and a choice. We will take back Congress. The President of the United States recognizes that, so he wants to rig the game, wants to change the rules midterm. They're very effective at this. They've done this in the past. They've got a lot of experience doing this. He dials up Greg Abbott, says, I need 5 instead of 12,000 votes. Georgia, I need 5 House seats. He obliges. And they're doing a midterm rejection of objectivity and independence. A act that we could criticize from the sideline, or an act that we can respond to in kind, fight fire with fire in the spirit that brings us here together today. I think.
I don't know what we're going to do. Trump's rigging the elections. Let's bring on Marcus from CalExit. How you doing this Friday, Marcus?
How you doing?
Good. And then here's Paul Reyes from the New California State Project. How you doing, Paul?
How you doing, guys?
Just to let everybody know, I gave both gentlemen here an outline of the topics we're going to be going over. So I'm not like Donna Brazil at CNN and just giving the questions to Hillary Clinton ahead of time, as has been exposed. And so we're fully transparent here and on a level playing field. Marcus, you want to start and give us a little background introduction to our audience so they know who you are?
Yes. First, I just established my liberal credentials. I got to respond a little bit. Gavin Newsom's talking about redistricting push in Texas, where they're going to push out Democrats to create more seats for Republicans. That's it, bare minimum, highly unorthodox. So that started with Abbott, not Newsom. Newsom's speaking in response to what Abbott did. Secondly, I disagree with Newsom that midterms mean Trump's out of power. That's based upon the theory that midterms always go to the party opposite the one who won. Donald Trump has defied every prediction made by political scientists in his entire 8-year period. So the idea that you're going to take traditional political assumptions and attach it to them is dumb. Just doesn't, oh, everything's going to work normally with this guy when nothing works normally with this guy. So that's garbage. Secondly, even if Republicans lost the House, they still will own the Senate, the presidency, and the Supreme Court, giving them the ability to stack the Supreme Court and enact executive actions without the approval of the House, meaning that he still very much will have the ability to be in power. Finally, in your response to dictatorial Newsom, I think that when you send active duty combat trained Marines in on a domestic protest, which has never happened in the entire 200-year of American history, and you say the National Guard should be sent in to deal with the domestic protest against the will of the governor, the people, and the government, and you take a U.S. Senator who's the first Latino and you throw him to the ground like a dog, and then you have your vice president mispronounce his name and laugh about it, and then you threaten to arrest the sitting governor, that is real dictatorship and tyranny. Now, to get back to my bio, my name is Marcus Ruiz Evans. I started the CalExit movement in around 2011, 2012. I'm the oldest person attached to it. I'm the guy that started the whole thing, although there's certainly other groups, CNP and other people. As I said, nobody owns CalExit. It's a general term, as picked by a UCLA student in 2016. So I'm with the largest group, calexitnow.org. We're the ones that are pursuing the ballot initiatives. We're going to have the 50 million person influencer event that's never happened. The film festival tour around California with a top film shown in theaters across California, the formation of a PAC commercial, an app, and lobbying top level governor candidates in existing half of the assembly to form a blue ribbon panel and announcing that within the next few months. Nobody's doing big things like us at all anywhere there. So thank you for the introduction and your time. And Paul, thank you for serving.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Wait, before we get to Paul's introduction, here's a trigger warning for you guys. You may break down and start crying, but it was announced like 2 days ago. Kamala Harris says she is not running for California governor. I had a breakdown. I had to go in the cry closet for a few hours. I'm still not over it with this shocking development.
No.
Word on the streets is we've managed to actually start talking to bigwig Democrats, and Tony Atkins is going to be the next governor. Is what we're hearing.
Tony Atkins, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tony, Kamala bowed to Tony, and so it's Tony's game now.
Okay. Paul.
Sure it's not Steve Hilton?
Steve Hilton will try. He absolutely will try. And good luck to him and every Republican who's tried since Ronald Reagan to turn.
He's a redcoat, man.
Yeah.
By the way, all of them have failed. California's never turned red. I've been here 10 years and I've heard conservatives say, we're going to turn California red. We're going to turn California red. And I go, why does it keep going more blue every election, every about 2 to 4 years? And then people say, well, look at Donald Trump's recent election. You know, if you look at California, he got half of California. I go, if you look at just blue and red, but if you look at the color shade degree of change, he turned light blue to light pink. That means like 48% to 52. That is not a sweep. And I've gone at least 3 or 4 Republican shows where they have no idea what I'm talking about. They're like, Trump won, and go, show me this map. What's that? That means he didn't win. He kind of swung it barely by 2 points in an election, and really the majority of California is going liberal over the last 18 years of election cycles.
All right, Paul, go ahead and give us an introduction.
Yeah, so just real quick, a quick disclaimer. First of all, thank you, Marcus, for this, and of course my colleague, my battle there, Sam, for running this program. I will say that I am upholding to a NDA, so I won't be speaking as in matter of fact. Everything that I say will be kind of in this. What would I do if I was in a leadership position? This is protect. But myself, I'm not a politician. I'm also not a politician. I'm just a citizen, as you're, like yourself, Marcus, that we just want change. I do believe there's a unifying factor here. It's just how we're going about it. And to me, the realistic aspect of how we go about pursuing this. And I mean, it's uphill battles for both of us. Right. But I do believe there's, the way that we're going is probably a little more feasible, especially constitutionally. But we'll get into that. Myself, I've served in the military for 13 years, 4 years active duty, about 9 years National Guard stationed out of Camp Roberts. I did 7 years as a peace officer in the Department of Corrections for the Youth Authority before Newsom shut down the rest and the remaining prison system, youth prison facilities. And now I work for my local school district for the special education program. So I'm trying to give back and do what I do the right way. So like I said, this is all love here. I'm not going to defame or slander. I don't even know who you are, Marcus. So, but I think our goal, really, at the end of the day, is very similar. So I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. I love your shirt. I love your hat. Thank you for serving. And Sam, there aren't too many programs where they allow Latin people to be the ones discussing the future of the entire political system. And I got to point out, thank you, Sam, for doing that. It doesn't happen that often. Many times I find myself to be the only Latin intellectual on a show. Paul, it's great to actually talk to another Latin person involved at this level and being allowed to speak. I remember, I'm 48, I remember in the 1990s, and I was told all Latin people are dumb and all they could do is mow lawns and sweep floors. And they could not be at the high level intellectual policy discussion level. And Sam, thanks for helping us to tear down walls. Appreciate it.
Well, it's funny that you say that because yes, of course, my last name, I'm Latin. What Reyes means, right? But also on my mother's side, we come from a prominent family that pioneered a section of California, in Central California. So I'm rocking both sides, man, and I'm a true Californian at heart. So
awesome.
All right. So, yeah, let's get right into it then.
Let's do it.
Well, quickly, let's just talk about the federal government. Trump, in his first 6 months in his second term, serving right now, has bombed Somalia, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Iran. And so it's quite despicable. We need to get out from underneath the yoke of the tyranny of the federal government, because they're signing all of our American names to that. I don't want to bomb anybody in any of these countries. And it's quite despicable with no congressional approval. They're all illegal foreign wars of aggression, and everybody just shrugs their shoulder. Oh, well. And the majority of Americans don't even know that we've done. They probably know about Iran because that was pretty big news, but the rest of them, they don't even know or care. And it's quite despicable, carrying on the same imperialist policies that have gone on for decades here now from the federal government. I just had to put that out there because I'm just disgusted by it. And every American should know what your federal government is doing in your name. Okay, let's bring it back home to the state of California. Again, I gave both gentlemen here a copy of the questions, or the outline of the questions, so there would be no cheating going on. So first, let's go to Marcus on the secession side of the argument here. He's lobbying for California to secede from the union. And how do we get long-term economic stability when including handling debt division, trade agreements, currency transitions, adopting new currency versus retaining the U.S. dollar, and the loss or distribution of federal funding, while addressing potential disruptions to industries like tech, ag, and entertainment? That's a lot, a mouthful there, but I think you got the gist of it. Marcus, how is a sovereign independent state of California, separate from the union of the 50 states of the United States, going to operate here economically, as far as the U.S. dollar goes, which is still the world reserve currency?
For now.
Well,
I think you
Right.
should have put a giant asterisk on that last statement, Sam. The question is, a lot of people don't recognize that California is the world's fourth largest economy. It's also been one of the top 10 economies since the late 70s. So we're pushing about half a century where California basically had the size of economy of a nation state. The thing about this is people view secession as weird. What's weird is that one of the top 10 economies in the world isn't its own country. So every land government mass that achieves that much money, France, Germany, Russia, China, India, is their own country. California is the only sub-governmental unit that doesn't get to have all the other benefits of the other G10 or G20. You got to go down to the G40 to find another sub-region like Provence, France, that actually shows up in the marking. So that is really bizarre, doesn't happen anywhere else, and has gone on for about 40 to 50 years. The other thing you need to know is what's called foreign direct investment number one. So if you type in the California government, California is FDI 1, which means it is the most attractive place for foreign investment anywhere on planet Earth. Not America, California. So if you're in China, Russia, India, Europe, and you want to invest money, you specifically know about California more than you do New York, Washington, D.C., Miami, London, Florida. So when we're talking about trade deals and money, if we're the most attractive place for money amongst every billionaire, that kind of already sets us up for success. Secondly, as the world's fourth largest economy, we're also kind of set up for success. I point out that when Brexit happened and everybody said England's going to leave the EU, they will collapse as a country, nobody will trade with them, their dollar will fall, they'll have a collapsed economy. All hogwash, none of it happened. Why? They're too damn big. They're just too big an economy. Europe realized that as much big talk as they said, you can't cut off England without stabbing yourself in the neck. Sorry, you just can't. That's how money works. Secondly, Russia, China, India, Europe, America have billions invested into California. California actually got out of the 2014 recession because of Chinese money buying up the real estate market, not because of American investors. So a lot of people don't want to hear that. We owe the Chinese the ability to get out of the recession. How are we going to get cut off financially when we're the most attractive place to invest and everybody's put billions of dollars into us and they know us better than America? Let's go to foreign trade. There's a book called Global California, Abraham Lowenthal. It's the book that inspired me to push secession. He says being part of America is a loss for California, period, end of story. Now, if you want to be part of America for nostalgic reasons, great. But if you're talking about money, we have trade deals held up 5 to 10 years, which cost billions of dollars. We are 40% dependent on international trade, while America is less than 10%. So when we're talking about selling products to Korea and Japan, we have to go to the federal government and they go, I want to talk about transgender surgery. We'll get to your trade deal with strawberries to Korea in about 5 to 10 years. Governor Schwarzenegger criticized both Democrats and Republicans for damaging the California economy. Secondly, we're taxed. We're a donor state to $82 billion. Our general fund budget is around 210. We're talking about an additional third to our budget. And we're the highest tax state. Why? Because you take a third of our budget. And then other red states get to say that we're horrible for taxes while not mentioning to their people that they're subsidized by us. Florida, Texas talks about how California is horrible with taxes, and yet they get $2 to $3 for every dollar they send. We get 75 cents. If we got 300% back more than we gave, we could lower taxes here too, but we don't get to. Haven't been able to for 45 to 50 years. Secondly, let's talk about America's horrible foreign image. I'm sorry, but the Iraq war was illegal. It was a lie. It was against the international law. So was Libya. So was Syria. Afghanistan was a total failure and a disgrace to all service members. I'm not saying the service members, I'm saying the way the pullout handled. Iraq was also a total failure. In fact, America's done nothing but blown up countries against international law and legal precedent over the last 2 decades. And now with their stance, I won't get into it, on Israel, you have 3/5 of the entire world body painting the US as the bad guy. Guess what happens when your economy is dependent on foreign investment and foreign students and tourism and investment and travel? Your economy gets hurt. We're 1/3 immigrants here. America's about 5%. A third of our students are foreign. We have foreign visitors, foreign investors. So when America does these things, it is ruinous for the California economy. While America can get by it, Donald Trump's trade war with China, even if that goes well, it's destructive for California. You can't disrupt 40% of our economy and expect we're going to snap back together right away. Garbage. That's not how the economy works. So total financial loss for California. We'd have more money independently. It's been this way for 50 years, and the federal government does nothing but hold us back. As far as currency, and we already have trade recognition with every country, so we don't exactly need America. Also, Global California, they pointed out since 1931, every single trade deal America signed was because California legislators introduced the idea. You can go all the way up to the GATT, WTO, NAFTA 1, NAFTA 2. So why do we need America to do trade deals when we're the ones that told them to do a trade deal in the first place? And why do we need them for trade relations when China, India, Russia, and the whole planet already knows us? We don't. it's just a financial loss. Finally, if we're looking at US dollars, you don't have to be part of America to use US dollars. North Korea's primary currency is US dollars because US dollars go out and they have no control over them. So we can still use US dollars, and there's nothing America can do to stop us at all, short of bringing back all the US dollars to the banks, which would destroy America's stance as the world reserve currency and cause a global 1930s level recession. So that's never going to happen either. That's the answer.
All right, Paul, you want me to reread it, or
Yes,
you got
please.
it?
Go
Okay.
ahead, yeah.
Okay, so same question that Marcus just answered there, very in depth for Paul, coming from the making a new state perspective out of California. Here, long-term economic stability, including handling debt division, trade agreements, currency transitions, adopting a new currency versus retaining the US dollar, and a loss or redistribution of federal funding, while addressing potential disruptions to industries like tech, ag, and entertainment. How is a new state of California going to handle these issues in the economy? Paul.
Well, first I'd like to say, Marcus, we made a lot of comments that I agree with as far as the federal government. I think the federal government, especially with this second campaign and administration, is probably one of the most tyrannical and deceptive administrations in American history. And again, I mean, isn't this the president of peace? This is what he said, right? I mean, yeah. As far as the economics of it, I do agree a lot with what you said, Marcus, on your end. For us, I mean, as far as the currency side of it, if we were to, stand up as a new state, and if I were in a position to, again, of leadership and authority, we also have not seen, it's not unprecedented to have our own currency. We've seen it a long time ago. Fresno even had its own currency at one point. So that can be done by we the people at a local level. That's not, and something tangible like gold, silver. We need to go back to tangible assets. I feel like that's
California. Quickly, California has a state banking law, actually. That
it's proposed. It's not passed.
It's potentially it could happen. Just put it that way. Okay, sorry, Paul, to interrupt you.
No worries. To me, that's the true way forward. And cash is king. This is why I'm definitely, like, one of my red flags with this whole, was the Genius Act and Palantir. We know where this is going. This is digital CBDC, controlling mechanism. Cash is king. They cannot control us. They cannot monitor you with cash. But they do. They're doing everything necessary and in their power to take that away from us. We need to keep that element. We need to have some kind of, again, but tangible, not a debt note. Right? Goes back to a silver note, gold back, something, again, that will hold up and stand up. As far as infrastructure, I guess that's a different. But the overall economy, I agree with Marcus. We are the fourth largest economy in the world. I believe that's why we are kept down and controlled under this kind of oppressive tyranny. They know that, and the federal, I will call it as it is. We are the new Babylon. I hate to say it because I serve my country, and I believe in the idea of the inception in the formation of it, of the Constitution, and the under Judeo-Christian values, if that even makes sense. But
terrorism, Paul, terrorism. There's boogeymen terrorists that want to get us, man.
Right. And we've been held down, and Marcus said, again, I agree. I feel like this is not going to be really much of a debate. It's going to be.
I agree with everything you've said so far.
This is crazy. I mean, but I mean, it's
you guys
so,
are
yeah,
supposed to be hating on each other for being
sorry, Sam, it's not going that way so far, bro.
Man.
But I mean, yeah, they keep us controlled, they keep us hindered, they keep us oppressed with all the taxes. I mean, from everything, from energy. I mean, How come we have all this energy efficient technology? We have all these windmills and all of these LED lights, and yet I know people that their energy rates they're still paying almost $1,000 a month, and we know what's happening. It's all one.
Side note on that, everybody should look up here in California the fact that Palantir essentially runs the California energy grid with its operating system Foundry. It's right on their website. Everybody should go look it up and see why does PG&E and Southern Cal Edison both run Palantir Foundry software. They're from the technocracy. It's extremely concerning.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, with all these things, if it were me, if it was up to me, I mean, should we stand up? I mean, we would pretty much, old California state proper, or us being new California state, we'd start off fresh. Old California would maintain a majority. I would love for them to just absorb all of the debt that they've accrued. We'd start over fresh. But I mean, to be fair, I mean, hey, we are still a part of the state, and we're not leaving the old state behind. So we would take on some some of that debt, but dumbing down the bureaucracy, and having a true form of governance that's where you don't have politicians making $1 million a year and siphoning off of taxes and exorbitant amount of all these ridiculous fees. And creating new infrastructure with hydroelectric dams, new nuclear energy plants, becoming self-sufficient and truly liberating ourselves in the agricultural sector. I mean, there's so many ways that we can become prosperous and truly operate. I mean, look at the regulations. I mean, the red tape is probably as thick as anything. With if we were just allowed to tap into our oil reserves. In the Monterey Shale, in frack. I think I saw 1.3 billion barrels of oil is just in the Monterey Shale. I mean, we could not only self-sustain, but like Marcus said, supply the entire world and sustain the world at a level that's never been seen. But again, we've been held down on purpose because the enemy and those that rule over us, they cannot allow that. It's all about oppression and tyranny. And so, that's my thought on it.
All right. Sounds like you don't like otters. Okay. Moving on here to the next part, legal and constitutional feasibility. We'll go to Marcus first. What are the primary legal paths and challenges for achieving your goals of CalExit, such as the often cited Texas versus White case there? So tell us how can California legally and constitutionally secede from the union, Marcus?
I will just want to say, Paul, I didn't really disagree with anything you said. I mean, maybe slightly on if we should do the oil, but you're right. The oil's there. It's worth that much. The wars are horrible. They're not representing us. PG&E's, yeah. And also to back up Paul even more, 2014, California created a law that allowed you to create other currencies. So that's already there. And finally, I'll give you guys one we don't normally say. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were going to be absolutely no different from Donald Trump on all the wars. Just exactly the same. We can talk about other issues, but when it comes to military industrial complex. So, okay, now to get to the legal constitution and feasibility. So there was an article that came out and they get this wrong. Nobody will ever print two facts. I've told 65 reporters over about 8 years. One and only one. CBS out of San Francisco will print this. I'm not exaggerating.
Props to them. Why won't they print
Max Sparrow from CBS San Francisco is the only one out of 65 plus reporters over 8 years who will print these two facts. Number one, Texas versus White has the phrase that says you can secede with, quote, consent of the states. That phrase is actually there and it's in the law. Even if a lawyer comes on TV and says Texas versus White says you can't secede, period, that's not true. There's a phrase that says you can with, quotes, consent of the states. They'll never mention that. 64 reporters out of 65 would not mention that when it takes you 5 seconds to find that on Google. It's at Stanford Law, it's at Cornell Law, and it's at the New York City Law Library. It's
almost like they work for the federal intelligence agencies or
it
something,
is
like Operation Mockingbird or something like this, huh?
I make sure to thoroughly explain this point to 65 reporters. One and only one of them has mentioned it. Whatever you think that means. The other thing they won't mention is there's a guy called Erwin Chemerinsky. Erwin Chemerinsky, he's at UC Berkeley. He founded and started 2 separate UC schools of law. He's argued in front of the Supreme Court multiple times. He's the most cited legal expert in America. And he said in an article in 2017 that consent could mean a simple majority vote of Congress, because a simple majority vote of Congress made California a state. And so a simple majority vote, meaning just 25 states, not the amendment process, just 25 states saying this could be doing that. They will never mention Erwin Chemerinsky. Instead, they'll mention a guy called David Carrillo, who works out of UC Berkeley and says, Texas versus White says you can't secede, period, end of story. And I go, why can't you? David Carrillo's never argued in front of the Supreme Court. He's never founded a UC law school, and he's never been a top legal cited jurist. And everyone considers Chemerinsky a higher legal authority than Carrillo. They will mention Carrillo. They will never mention Chemerinsky or what he said, and they will never mention that Texas versus White says consent to the states. 80% of our members have told me, I know this is illegal, but I'm into it. And I have to tell them it's completely legal. So we only get these questions because the media will not mention Texas versus White exists, consent to the states exists, and a top legal scholar said the Supreme Court could easily interpret consent to mean a simple majority vote. What we do know, and another thing that the news will lie about, is they'll say the Constitution forbids secession. No, it doesn't. It says nothing about secession at all. Doesn't ban it, doesn't not allow it. What it does say is all legal questions are decided by one of the 3 branches only, not the House, Senate, presidency. It's called the Supreme Court. Supreme Court's the only one able to do legal decisions unless Congress directly passes a law. If it gets to interpretation of what the existing laws, only the Supreme Court can make that decision. Supreme Court only looked at secession once, Texas versus White, and they said you could do it with consent. Secondly, I see a lot of professors go, oh, well, Antonin Scalia was asked about secession. He goes, it's legal. There was a civil war and it settled the question. I'm sorry to correct a Supreme Court justice, but that's not the way the American legal system works. So because Texas versus White came after...
That's the way hardcore gangsters work.
Well, right. So let's say I wanted to talk about...
They put the gun and say, listen here, it's legal or illegal according to my gun.
I want to point out what Scalia is saying. Let's say I wanted to talk about returning slavery to African-American people. I wouldn't look at the 1965 law by Johnson that gives them rights as equal citizens to vote. I'd go back to the 1800s Dred Scott decision. That's not how the system works at all. So when Scalia says, I'll ignore Texas versus White, which is the more recent and court ruling, and I'm going to go to an older decision that wasn't a court ruling, that's not the way the law works. Finally, Texas versus White was decided by Salmon Chase. Salmon Chase was appointed directly by Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, in his first inaugural address, said he would have allowed secession, quote, if directed by the public. That sounds damn close to Salmon Chase saying consent to the states. Nobody will mention first inaugural address or that Salmon Chase was appointed by Lincoln or consent to the states or Erwin Chemerinsky. If they did, we'd probably already be independent by now.
All right, let me just point out the Declaration of Independence says that asserts that the people have the right and duty to overthrow a government that is destructive of their inalienable rights, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's a founding document of America here, allegedly. All right, Paul, let's have your take on how is what's the feasibility, the legality of creating a new state, as is the proposition put forth by a New California movement.
Well, again, I like to point out that Marcus, I'm learning a lot from you. So there's a lot of facts that you're
going to convert him to be a secessionist. Oh man.
No, absolutely not. I will say this: there's 2 points two main points to me, and it's just, what I see. There's two precedents, right? There's precedent on both sides. Unfortunately, for one side, we kind of, I guess, are the victors so far. There's precedent for secession. That didn't go too well. And there's precedent for constitutional separation, West Virginia, that went well. And I will say, although I agree so much.
Explain West Virginia a little bit, Paul, for our audience that's not familiar with what
Well,
happened.
West Virginia in 1863 decided to break away or attempted to secede, very similar to Texas. Again, I mean, I'm not a historian here, but I'm kind of breaking it down how I understand it. And they wanted to form a new state. They weren't obliged to do that, but they created a reorganized government that eventually was accepted, and then eventually they adopted. Were able to create a new state from an existing state by way of a new government, Republican small r form of government, and that was back in 18. So there's precedent for the way that New California state is attempting to do it by using the Constitution, Article 4, Sections 3 and 4 of the Constitution. Article 3 it states that you can create it, or no state can become an existing state without the approval of Congress. And then then you have section 4 that it gives the parameters and the justification to do so. Which obviously, being California, we have a corrupt government, we have a corrupt leader that foments tyranny. Domestic violence, does not protect our borders, open borders, sanctuary cities, and it's just complete chaos. So I know that I believe, again, just our way, and I'm not to diminish so much of the secessionist movement, because I at the end of the day, I truly believe, for the most part, we want the same thing, but which way is going to be easier? Which way will have more conflict, more of an uphill battle, even though I do believe our hills are very steep together anyway. Because I also believe, though, that it wouldn't surprise me if, and it kind of sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marcus, to me, there's a reason why we don't get radio play, we don't get coverage, we don't get the media coverage, but you guys do. I'm not assuming, and I'm not implying. Let me finish. But it seems to me that you guys get more coverage because the agenda. There's a bigger agenda. Maybe I'm not implying you're a part of that, but they'd rather see a secession and kind of a more of a constitutional crisis in that regard than something that is come more, in a sense, true to form, and I guess lighthearted. I don't know, more constitutional, more. I don't know. I don't know. And yet we don't get, I mean, you got Trump over here talking about Canada and Greenland, absorbing them as the 51st state, but has not once acknowledged this movement of his own people wanting to break away from a tyrannical government and tyrannical leader and create a new state so we can flourish. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Supreme Court did, if you got that far, hear your case and overturn Texas versus White, because I think that's where we're at in history. So, I mean, we're at like a crossroads in history. We're seeing a lot of firsts, and so yeah, it wouldn't surprise me on any level which way this goes. But I do believe our way is more sound constitutionally.
All right. Any reply to that, Marcus, or shall we move on?
We will have a debate here. So agreed on everything to Fort. I want to point that out. We agreed. So here's where we'll start to debate.
Okay.
The Constitution lays out a process for creating new states. It did at the beginning, but it says that the people in that state have to approve of the separation. Right. So you have to get a domestic vote before you can even approach Congress. So that's a key step. West Virginia is considered by many legal scholars to be patently unconstitutional because Lincoln didn't do that. He literally split the state up and said, okay, well, just you, the separate part, can vote. He never asked the Confederate rest of Virginia for permission, which is actually the process in the Constitution. So many legal scholars say that example is actually patently unconstitutional because he did not follow the constitutional process. Secondly, we can't say that secession is illegal. They never mentioned that in the Constitution. It's not mentioned at all. There's one Supreme Court case says, and it says with consent, but not unilateral. The important thing here, I think, is that Jefferson Davis was never tried in court, ever. He was in prison, but they refused to try him. Additionally, they refused to try John Calhoun. The thinking is because those guys could point that the Constitution allowed just as much chance for secession as Lincoln did. You got to go back 150 years. Now, today we consider Lincoln the top legal law at the time. At the time of Lincoln's life, other people said Davis and Calhoun were better legal scholars than Lincoln. So today we don't hear about these guys, right? Lincoln's the good guy. But at his time, there were people who were just as good as him saying the total opposite interpretation of the law. Finally, the Constitution does not say, and this is the thing that always gets me with lawyers and historians, if there's a legal dispute, the president can just decide what it means. That's nowhere in the Constitution. And yet that is exactly what Abraham Lincoln did with turning on the Confederacy. He made up the decision that you can't secede because I said the Supreme Court should have came out with a ruling, in which case he could have enforced it. That's not what he did. So why didn't you try Jefferson Davis or Calhoun? Why did you never have a trial on secession? Why do people say West Virginia is unconstitutional? And why are you not challenged on the fact that the presidency nowhere in the Constitution can just determine what the law is? Secondly, because counties are not creatures of the federal government, they have no agency to go to the federal government. So California would have to approve of Jefferson leaving, and then they would be allowed to go. And if California denies them that right, they have no ability to redress anybody. Counties don't exist outside the state. They're creatures of the state. So the federal government can totally ignore them. By the way, I mentioned this to a New York Wall Street reporter, walked him through 30 minutes of it, and then he cut out everything I said and went with the article anyways. So I find that interesting that they can't mention this key point. Additionally, the fact is that California doesn't support splitting California up. Tim Draper tried to split California up into multiple states with 2 different ballot initiatives, one for 6 states, the other for another separation. The Public Policy Institute of California did surveys for both attempts. 66 and 73% said, hell no, we don't want to split California up. So we have 2 polls showing the overwhelming majority are dead set against splitting California up, and they have no constitutional agency to pursue this, and they'd have to get a permission. And finally, when Donald Trump got elected, for whatever reason, the Jefferson movement tied themselves to him. So while the rest of California was disgusted by a guy who said that all Latino people are rapists, and then instituted the Eisenhower deportation plan, which was technically called Operation Wetback, and then appointed a vice president who won his Ohio race after running a commercial that said, "Do you hate Mexicans?" and then followed it up with a statement on the first Latino senator being thrown to the ground like dogs and got his name wrong and then laughed about it. That's the group. And so Californians are never going to associate with this. They hate Trump. And Jefferson said, this is our guy. And 2 polls said, we're never going to allow this. And they can go to absolutely nobody and address grievances from anybody, not even a congressional rep at all. Don't have agency to see them. Secondly, the process they're talking about is considered by many scholars to be unconstitutional. It's going to have a big legal challenge when it gets there, if it ever does, which they have no pathway to do. I'm done. Thank you.
All right. Any rebuttal there, Paul, or shall we move on?
The only thing I'll say is, I'll leave it, humbly as this, and I do hear you, Marcus, but for me, I do the best I can to be just a fact-based guy. Again, what I see with my own eyes, what I hear with my own ears, and fortunately for us, again, I hear you about scholars and others that come out with whatever their findings are and their research and historical acumen, but history has speaks for itself, and we have one side and we have one side of the coin, both sides of the coin, and in this particular case, our side, it benefits us. That's all I'm saying. I get it, and I do resonate, understand the constitutional argument, and I do agree with you. And again, at the end of the day, and I might say this every freaking segment because I do believe it, and I think all 3 of us are in alignment. we all want the same thing, and that's break away from this tyranny, whether it's the federal government or the state government. We need something new. So, but yeah, I'll land it there.
I'll just add that, it is debatable on if West Virginia was unconstitutional or not. When Lincoln made the decision, the country was at war and they were afraid of the Capitol being stormed and him being killed. So there wasn't a whole lot of pushback on stuff he did. He deported immigrants because they printed stuff in newspapers he didn't like. That's straight up dictatorial and against everything in America. Nobody said anything. He gunned down protesters of a draft. No one said anything. In New York, they just shot up like 1,000 people who didn't want to be part of the draft because they were protesting. Worst Central African style dictatorship thing. No one challenged anything he did. Those things are patently unconstitutional and un-American, and yet they're allowed to stand today. Nobody challenged Lincoln on that. Nobody's tried him. Nobody's even criticized him for this. So the idea that we're going to be able to pull off Lincoln-esque actions in a time where we're not in the middle of a civil war, I find questionable, because somebody's going to have to say, California, Jefferson doesn't have to ask for your right to leave. Even though it's in the Constitution, we're just going to deny you the right. Expect fireworks when someone says that. I'll leave it there.
All right, moving on to the next section here about resource allocation and environmental management. California has critical issues such as water scarcity, wildfires, energy resources. How would CalExit manage international negotiations for shared resources like the Colorado River as an independent nation? Marcus?
California does not have a water issue at all. That's all.
Every summer, I'm told we're in a drought, and I'm drought shamed for watering my lawn.
Yep.
They said I'm bad for drinking water right now. I need to
get it in.
Dehydrated.
Go ahead and do more exasperation. If you want to jump up and dance, go ahead and get it in. Get it in, because I'm going to educate everybody here. So get it in. By the way, Warner Brothers Music did a 9-part documentary series. I explained to them for 40 minutes how we don't have a water issue. They cut all of the interview except for the phrase where I said we don't have a water issue. And then they went to a professor and goes, this guy says we don't have a water issue. And he goes, well, this guy's crazy. They cut 40 minutes of my explanation. So I'm publicly out there going, we don't have a water issue. And the professor goes, that's stupid. This guy's nuts. Why did he say that? I don't know. It's not mentioned at all. I gave him a 40-minute explanation. It basically goes like this. 80% of our water goes to ag. 80% of our ag is shipped out of California. So 80% of our water goes to not feeding or providing California industry or giving drinking water to any Californian. It's shipped abroad. The agriculture industry is no more than 2% of the California economy. We could literally collapse the agriculture industry and be totally economically fine. The reason why
But what are you going to eat? What are you going to eat if you collapse?
Well, here's the thing, though. We'd only have to grow 20% of the crops to feed ourselves. If 80% is exported, we only need to grow 1/5 of what we grow now to provide all the food we need for ourselves. And we only need 1/5 of the water that we have now to provide all the water we need for ourselves. What we do is the agriculture industry has what's called lobbyists, and they've been in charge for a while, and they've made it clear. So if you look at New York Times articles on California, they'll talk about how California is the only place in the world in America where they have these 1800s grandfathered in water rights laws. Those are all in the Central Valley where I live. So California has these old Civil War, old level water rights laws that 49 other states don't have. Just to let you know, something's stinking legally, right? No one else does this, but we do. We allow these farmers to have total control of the water and manipulate the whole state. You don't have to have any water shortage at all. We have more water than we need from the north. Jerry Brown was going to build 2 pipelines and solve the issue. Governor Newsom bowed to environmentalists and created only 1 pipeline. So this is where I admit liberals can hurt us. We have the water. We could have had the infrastructure. Liberals stood in the way. It's not an issue. We can grow all the crops that we need. So if America wants to cut off the Colorado River, we'll cut off 90% of the fruits and vegetables that they eat, and then they'll starve. No water issue. That's what I mean. By the way, nobody can mention that in the press. All these facts take less than 3 minutes to find online. But good luck finding a reporter mentioning that. Everybody's water issue, water drought. mention that 80% goes to ag and 80% shipped out, and ag's no more than 2%. They will never mention those three statistics. I challenge anybody to find any report in the last 10 years where they say that clearly.
Well, that's why we have to do weaponized news here. Okay, Paul.
That's exactly right. Here's the other part where we could agree. Ryan, your message and my message would never see the light of day in mainstream media. That's why we're both here. I think we can both agree on that.
Oh,
Right?
man. Well,
I don't
thank
get
you.
to say this stuff in mainstream media, right? I talk to New York Times or Politico. They don't print this. They print a quote. I only get these facts out on your show. I literally told you how Warner Brothers Music did a 9-part documentary and cut 40 minutes of explanation so I look like a stupid idiot. That's what happens in mainstream news. It's literally alternative media is the only real discourse now.
All right, Paul. Same question. What do we do about the water scarcity issue, wildfires, energy resources as a new state? How is a new state going to handle all this? So water rights between urban coastal areas and rural inland regions while remaining under U.S. federal government oversight as still being part of the union as being a new state, new California.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I know a whole lot on this subject, just as far as what I have an idea about. And I get it, Marcus, man. I agree, 100%. Everything is stolen, pilfered, misappropriated, controlled, whether it's by non-NGOs. I mean, you name it. And I agree. We know our water's controlled, and we know there's an abundance of it. But we've seen how our government it's either hasn't built enough aquifers, caved in canals, just distributed them. LA pretty much controls a large plethora of our water in this area of the state. I did hear your point about the Northern California for sure. Northern California alone can produce enough water in itself, and that's controlled. And I agree with you with the pipeline issue, and that was something that is, if I was up to me, definitely would hit that beast in the mouth and open up those pipelines, and I would just give the control back to the people. I mean, how many farmers have their ability to have their own water source, and they're controlled by NGOs like Westland Water District, and we got just. It's all about bureaucracy, and if we cut the red tape the best way we can, we like Marcus said, we could find there's many ways to get our water restored and not be under this quote unquote water shortage emergency. We know it's fake. It's on purpose. It's all nothing but optics. So, but again, that goes back to the tyranny and the oppression of holding us down and keeping us down, keeping the boot on our necks. So, but I mean, also, develop, open up these dams, these closed dams, maybe create more dams, hydroelectric power for energy, things of that nature. I mean, look where I think, are we down? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Are we down to like one active nuclear power plant? Was it Diablo Canyon? Isn't that going to shut down? So, I mean, but this is all on purpose. So, I
heard there's a Pacific Ocean just west of us, but that's just rumors.
Right. I mean, it's really, to me, I'm not an economist. I'm not I'm not a politician. I just feel like it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out. I mean, really, just putting a little bit of your brain to work and saying 1 + 1 = 2. You know what I'm saying? So,
and
but
you got the oligarch issue I wanted to mention here with the old wonderful company, the Resnicks. They control a large share of California's water, where it goes, the rights to it,
right,
and the like. And they shouldn't be let off the hook. The wonderful company. Everybody should look them up. There's been
Nestle. And Nestle.
Well, water's not a human right, Marcus.
Well, so there's in San Bernardino, where it's a desert. I live there, and they have a massive water problem. There are wells under the ground. The federal government allowed Nestle to pump the water out and bottle it and sell it for money for $500, and they made a couple billion. And then we got to have a water shortage. And the feds knew about that, did not care that we were in a water shortage. did not care that they were on expired permits. Let's let them make money. Screw the Californians. That's fact. Happened.
But and again, it all goes back to control. It's all control. Our energy, our water. Again, we know that we have the ability, and it's there. It's all there for us. But they push the button. Keep the boot on their necks. And don't forget, guys, the smell. I mean, hey, we got. How can I save those little guys, man? No, if New California, hey, guess what? Smelts are going in a bad way, man. New California State, we don't care about that.
I'll say it. The smelt is a total gain as a liberal. I'm generally liberal, but there's a couple things where I have to admit people on my side are making the problem worse. So,
Yep.
The original court case for the smelt, the judge called out the lawyers for faking the science and then
Right.
went ahead with giving them the ruling anyways. That is really unorthodox.
For our audiences, explain quickly about the Delta Schmelt issue that don't
They're not even
understand.
native to our land.
They're not even native to here. It's a little tiny fish that lives in the Delta, and they're saying if you suck too much water out of the Delta, which is the major convalescence point of all the water, then it's going to be bad for this fish. The fish is not here.
Coming from the Sierras through the American and Sacramento rivers.
Yeah, and the original court cases that allowed this to happen, they faked some of the evidence. The judge called them out, and then he goes, go ahead with it anyways. Additionally, they did the conservation efforts. We've had scientists look at it. All of our conservation efforts have resulted in no improvement for the Delta smelt. So it was never an issue. It was legally dubious. And even when we did everything the liberals said, it did absolutely nothing at all. So totally in agreement. Let's put this fish in museums. We can increase the population. There was a conservative who represented this. He goes, look, if you're worried there's only 500 of them, I talked to a couple scientists. For $2 million, we could have these fish in every California university being studied and raise their population to 1 million. So if it's about them going extinct, we could go from 500 to 1 million for $2 million, and we could stop this whole silly debate. And we could save the species.
But isn't this the same tactic they use? Again, control system, control grid. Everything is extinct, so don't go over there. We're closing it down. Don't go over there. We're closing it down. You can't. It's all just a ruse in the same game of psychological manipulation and control. That's all it is.
It is, but that's why we think CalExit would work better. So for this reason, how many of you have you guys been to Sacramento?
Yep.
Sam,
born in Sacramento, brother.
All right, Paul, how many times have you been to Sacramento?
I lived up there for a little while.
So maybe 50 to 100 times or more, right?
Yeah, give or take.
Sam, how many times?
I was born there. I lived there many years.
And then when you were in Fresno, you went back and drove there many times. I went to protest with you up there.
We went to protest. I have family there. Yes, indeed.
How many times have you been to Washington, D.C., Sam?
Never, because I won't fly on a plane because of their naked body scanners and date rape by the federal TSA.
And before you were as political as you were in the last 10 years, how many times did you go to D.C. then?
Never.
Okay. Paul, how many times have you been to D.C.?
No, negative. Not.
So, guys, is it easier to keep politicians in account when you can visit them in 2 hours and you've made the trip 15 to 20 times, or politicians on the other side of the continent that you've never managed to visit once in your entire lifetime? Who's easier to hold to account, guys?
Right here at home.
Yeah. And one of the top things that California politicians say whenever you point out the issues you brought up, Paul, correctly, is, oh, my hands are tied. There's federal regulations. It's so complicated, guys. There's feds. They won't. So Californians get up there and they hear, Newsom, you're doing this. No, feds made me. And they get confused.
Right.
If you took that away from them, then when you went up and you called Newsom, it's your fault. He has no one to blame, and he has to accept the responsibility. I worked in government in SAC. They always blame the feds in a second, even if it's not true. Once you remove that, everybody's going to go to SAC. Nobody's going to spend any time on DC. You'll have 500% more attention on them, and you will have removed the number one thing politicians can have to shield themselves from responsibility: blame the feds. We're talking a level of accountability you guys can't even dream of with CalExit.
So, may I speak on that? So, I agree, and I love it because Yeah, I mean, let's just call what we're at in California history, and I'm going to say it. I mean, U.S. history. To me, we're at a pivotal crossroads. We're at, in a sense, a revolution 2.0, revolutionary type environment, right? This is why we're seeing Trump talking about, oh, let's absorb Canada. Let's take like, yeah, no, like no, crazy. Like, get out of here. First of all, dude, I can go off on that. That's different. But we too can do the same thing if we operate on a constitutional, true Republican form of government. Because this is why we saw with Trump, with the blue states with their governors, we've seen it multiple times, and we saw the other way with Biden, right, with the red states. They understand their constitutional protections as sovereign states. That's why governors can go up there and say, Biden, I don't care. I don't care what you say. We're not going to do that. Why? Because we're sovereign, and vice versa. So that same mindset and same protection we could also hold in this constitutional manner as a new California state. And even more so, I believe that, and I agree, I would love to just separate from the federal government and not have to depend on them. I don't care. We don't need FEMA. Matter of fact, I don't want FEMA. Matter of fact, take your federal troops out of here. People don't even understand that concept. I guess we're going to get into that. I think it's the next one. But my point is, we can separate and not beholden to the federal government or the president of this strong central government. We don't have to. If we truly had a governor that cared for our state and stood up for his people. So, either side of the argument can have that same overall effect, I guess I'm saying.
I will respectfully push back. We agree on a lot of things. I totally agree with you that America's fallen apart, civil war, but
Right.
New California state would still be a state. So it'd
Right.
still be under the control of the federal government, and every politician in the New California state could still say, oh, I can't do that. The feds made me do that. And you'd still have to go to DC. So the lack of removal of their shield and the lack of accountability only happened with CalExit out of these two options.
I see your point, and I won't argue with that.
Can I say something real quick about Greenland and Canada? Sam, is that okay?
Go ahead. What's up? But real quick about Canada, I'm starting a campaign. We need to sanction them, bomb them, of course, because they're talking about recognizing Palestine at the UN in September. And so we got UK, France, Saudi Arabia, and now Canada all on the list to be bombed and sanctioned by the U.S. federal government for their support for Palestinian statehood at the United Nations.
I mean, hey, it's a good look, and I'm sure it will not have long-term repercussions for America's retention of the global dollar reserve, which requires everybody to continue to use it, international trade position, and political stance as the world leader on democracy. I'm sure backing this horrible policy, which 80% of the global population sees as what it is, don't worry, it'll be just fine. There won't be any long-term repercussions for doing this, even though the last regime that did it was attacked by the entire planet.
Don't worry, guys. APAC they don't have anything to do with this.
Yep. Let's leave it there. I don't want to get the video shut down while we're talking about something. We'll leave it there. Okay.
Yeah.
Fun and games. Greenland, Canada, because Paul, other people have brought this up and they've said, Mark, how are you going to leave? And why would Trump let you when he's saying, I want more land? So
Right.
I've heard that. Trump never said that he wanted Greenland and Canada to just expand America. In interviews, he said the military told him they want those territories. What they're talking about is the climate change is expanding the Arctic and Arctic access. Russia has lots of new sea routes and is putting up new military bases. America only has Alaska as the American territory on the Russian periphery. If they added Greenland and all of Canada, they can now basically buffer 60% of the Russian coastline in the Arctic, where the Pentagon has said the new next war will happen. Donald Trump has specifically said it was because the U.S. military told him for, quote, military reasons why he wanted those two things, and specifically because of their relationship to the Arctic. When we look at California, I would point out that the prime minister of two different countries have said it's clear from our side of the planet that Donald Trump hates California. You have leaders of countries, not even in America, saying this guy hates you so much. Secondly, you have the Republican Party constantly talking trash on us. I'm here in the Central Valley, and I always ask people, tell me one Republican elected official or conservative newscaster in the last 3 decades who ever said anything about how California is great for the economy. It subsidizes 3/5 of the red states. We would have nothing without them. And while we talk about undocumented immigrants and climate change and genital mutilation of our children, turns out we're the welfare queens on them. That has never been mentioned by any Republican official or any newscaster, radio host, TV person in 30 years. We're talking about a field of 45,000 people, and not one of them can mention it in 3 decades. So how do we know that they actually care about us when they can't even mention those basic statistics like you guys live because of us? Secondly, I would point out, like I said earlier, when you send Marines in on a domestic protest and you say, I'm sending angry Marines, and that's never happened before, and it shocks the entire planet, that doesn't look like love. When you say, I'll send the National Guard in against the will of your people, when you take the senator from that state and throw him to the ground like a dog and then say nothing about it and have your vice president joke about it the next day, that sounds like you don't like us. Finally, I point out the Los Angeles Times poll that came out only 8 months ago. 48% of all Republicans across all 50 states view all Californians, that includes you, Paul, and you, Sam, as, quote, not American. So half of the Republican Party views
Not me, I'm white.
Sorry, but you'd have to ask, you're asking people in Iowa to care about technical differences. You understand that they think we all live on the coast and they think you guys are liberals, right? If you're not from here, they don't know there's conservatives here and we all live on the coast. So when they're talking about I hate Californians, they mean everybody here. The Oroville Dam.
Damn it.
The Oroville Dam was in a red county in California. I encourage you to type in Republican response to deaths at Oroville Dam, which showed 35 red states saying, I'm glad you died, when the majority of the people who died at the Oroville Dam collapse were all Republican. So Republicans across America said, glad you're dead, because they didn't know you guys were Republican. They saw you in California and they wished death on you. That makes sense when we have a poll saying 48% of Republicans view us all as not American. And then after the poll comes out, here's Donald Trump. We have the Palisades and Eaton fire. People are burned alive.
Right.
There are charred bodies on the ground. There are people homeless, destitute. And in that response, Trump says, I don't know if I want to give disaster assistance because I'm not sure I like you guys. And then when we have a domestic protest, he says, I'm going to send Marines to 29 Palms, which are trained, they're called MARSOC or JARSOC Marines. They're trained for taking on the Republican Guard in Iraq, blowing away the toughest foreign army out there. And he sent them to deal with a domestic protest. None of those things have happened in U.S. history ever. No president has ever denied emergency assistance and said it's because I don't like you. And no president has ever sent foreign invasion combat troops on a domestic protest. And both of those things happened after the poll showing half of Republicans think we're all scumbags and not Americans. And I'm supposed to believe he loves us? How? How does all that equal that he has anything but hate in his heart for us? He did things to us that have never happened by any president in 200 years and never in any state. And here's my favorite part. Not one Republican in all of America could criticize him. When he told fellow Americans, when they're dead and bodies are charred on the ground, I'm not going to do anything for you because I don't like you, not one Republican said, sir, you can't talk to fellow Americans that way. When he sent combat-trained Marines in on a domestic protest, not one Republican said, sir, you cannot send a foreign invasion force against a domestic protest. They said nothing, not one of them. Maybe it's because they said they hate all of our guts. And that's why they don't need to give us emergency assistance. And that's why they can treat us like a foreign invasion army, because they see us as foreigners and scumbags. Tell me how I'm getting this wrong with all those facts. Tell me how that means Trump loves us and would be saddened to see us go. How the hell does that add up? Call me wrong. Tell me, no, I said foreign invasion Marines against you guys. That means I see you as Americans. I threw your senator to the ground. I threatened to arrest your governor. I said I'm not going to give any assistance when people are dead and bodies are charred on the ground, and I did it with a smug smile. But secretly, I love you and view you as fellow Americans.
See, you're getting
anyone here.
Well, you're starting to believe in the secret plan there, Marcus. And he affectionately calls old Governor Gavin Newsom, new scum, by the way, and so that's very unprofessional, I would have to say. Just quickly here, indeed, the federal government is telling us this post today by the United States Trade Representative with their official gray check mark. Hey, it's all wrestling, quite literally here now. There you go, from your federal government. I don't even know what we say at this point. It's literally professional wrestling. This is a meme put out by the United States Trade Representative official X account with the gray check mark there for the government, and they got him wearing the wrestling belt there. Literally.
Yeah. Let me say how that's all garbage. So never has, after you can go back to World War II and the formation of the Allies and the Western Order and America and Europe and the West got created around 1945. Since that time, America's always had good measures with their allies because they wanted them to stay in our orbit and not go to the Soviet Union. That's why we built up the German and Japanese economy instead of keeping them destitute and poor, because we knew they'd fall into the Soviet orbit and we were trying to win the Cold War. Now Trump is pissing off our best allies. The Europeans have never had a rough negotiation like this ever. You got to go back to 1920s. So this has never happened before. Additionally, we're facing an inflation and a potential recession, and then Trump wants to make it worse with our #1 producer of domestic goods. And then he wants to start trade deals. He started a 100% tariff on Brazil. Brazil's the only country that has a trade surplus with us. That means they buy more of our stuff than we buy of theirs. And they just said, oh, you're going to put a tariff on us? We'll put a 500% tariff. We're going to lose under that. And all this gerrymandering, rigging with China, do you know what that does to the California economy? We're 40% linked to international trade. America's only 7%. Even if he does make a deal. Like if I go to your house and I go, I'm going to build you a 2-story mansion, Paul. But first I'm going to knock out that wall and both bathrooms. And I'm going to spray paint the dog and the cat and your wife. But don't worry, in the future, it's going to be better. Would you like me or would you kick me out of your house?
Right. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay, let's bring it back. Okay, your reply, Paul, and then we'll move on to.
I was going to say,
sections left.
So you kind of have an idea where I personally align, and I do agree a lot with what you said. Other than I do want to kind of push back a little bit on the Canada-Greenland thing, a little, just because I know you're kind of, for your purview and perspective is, and I'm saying this respectfully at surface level. But Albert Pike once said, "When the people need a hero, I shall supply him." So let that sit where it may. I do believe we're seeing everything's a show. So, not to be disrespectful, but I believe even that, that center that you're speaking of that was thrown to the ground, everything we're seeing, everything is a psyop. And we need to question all of it. It's all political game. It's all chicanery. Whether it's Biden or Trump, I don't care. All of it. Now, with the whole, Canada, Greenland thing, are you familiar with Henry Kissinger and Igor Brzezinski?
Oh, yeah.
They were. Okay.
Yeah.
I think you know where I'm going to go with this then. So there is a technocratic, deeper agenda to all this. And it's the North American Union that keeps being rebranded from NAFTA. Now we're and then when Trump his first term, I think it was the USMCA, and now it's been rebranded once again to this North American Union, whatever. And it's about, to me, there's a bigger agenda, and it's about acquiring these lands and to disrupt. To disrupt, in a sense, the Constitution. It could create a constitutional crisis. The whole agenda is borderless nations, and getting rid of our natural sovereignty, our national sovereignty. And we've seen this happen through the EU, through Europe. Paris is a shell of itself. France is a shell of itself. All these places that were once, look at San Francisco. Look at San Francisco. It's a crown jewel of arguably not just California, not just the U.S., up there in the world as a crown jewel. And now it's a third world city. So this is what happens when you open the floodgates, just for quote unquote immigration, no matter how you want to look at it. And this is why we're seeing this happen. That's why we saw Biden's administration blatantly open the floodgates. And I don't believe that this administration is really doing a whole lot. It's all a dog and pony show, just, oh yeah, we're squashing it, but you're not squashing it fast enough. And even in his own words, he's saying, I think there was one time he said, oh no, we need immigrants. We need them over here. So he's flip-flopped and been wish-washy on so many things. And then let's be real with this whole Canada Greenland thing. I don't understand why people don't question this, because he never campaigned on it. He didn't bring it up one time in a campaign. Then right out the gate, his first two things were what? Now, I can touch on this, but we won't because it's not part of it. But he came out with Stargate Operation, Project Stargate, and then he brought this up to the American people. Oh, by the way, I want to take Greenland and Canada. Oh, and then we're going to change the Gulf of Mexico to go. What?
Mm-hmm.
Where did this all come from, man? So to me, it as it sits face value. To me, it's because you were hiding something. It's malevolent. It's not benevolent. It's not for the people. It's not for the betterment. You know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And to me, it goes back to the deeper technocratic agenda. I'll leave that there.
I could back a lot of that. I'll just point out, Trump came in and he said, I'm the peace president, right? I'm going to end the Ukraine war. I'm going to end the Israeli thing. It's going to happen. Then he backtracked.
He said, elect me, I will end Ukraine-Russia war in 24 hours.
Right,
Exactly. He said multiple times.
Mm-hmm. And then months later, he started sending weapons to them like Biden, a complete reversal of his policy. He said he was going to end the Israeli-Palestinian thing. Not done. It's a year later. Now we're sending American contractors to shoot at Palestinians and deny them food directly. He also said that, he said he was never going to do these things, right? And then he did them. So he's literally said, when asked about Greenland and Canada, he's literally said twice when people asked him, I was told by the military this is a priority, end quote. Said it 2 different times. Additionally, we know that the Pentagon has been saying for the last 2 years that the new Cold War front is the Arctic because of Russia's opening lines. Additionally, we know that Greenland and Canada are the only 2 countries that border Russia. And if America had them, they could literally put a defensive ring around Russia on a new access point that they've never had. These are all facts. We're just supposed to leave it in the line, even though they happen at the same time. I question that. If we're also going to talk about homelessness in California and San Francisco, you're absolutely right. What they won't mention is that American states get to dump homelessness on us and have been doing that for decades. And there's absolutely nothing we can do about it as long as we're part of America. There's a reason why France and England and Germany have heavily socialist countries and really strict immigration controls. It is tough to visit England for 6 months or become a citizen. Same thing with France, because they don't want anybody just flooding in and taking all the benefits. You have high benefits, you have high immigration controls, standard. California has high benefits and no immigration controls. So then everybody gets flooded in. There's a show called Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They literally did an episode called Ship Grandpa to California. Grandpa was, I'm not making this up, they did an entire half-an-hour episode. Apparently this is a big joke in the East Coast.
I haven't seen that one. I got to watch that. What's it called? Ship
No,
Grandpa?
a one-way bus pass to California. They've caught people from Texas, Hawaii, multiple states doing this. They even did a TV show on it. And yet none of that's mentioned. Additionally, why can't we clean up the homeless off our streets? Because we don't want to and we're liberals? No. It's because of a Ninth Circuit ruling of Utah, where there was a man who was homeless in front of a Walmart in Utah, and a federal court said you cannot remove the homeless person. After that happened, California was banned because of the federal government from removing homeless. Finally, let's talk about being able to provide for the homeless. It's $19 billion to wipe out homelessness in the Bay Area permanently. We lose $82 billion a year. So we'd have the money to fix this on our own. We'd be able to prevent people coming from this on our own, and we would not be prevented from collecting homelessness. None of this is printed in the newspapers. It's always just liberal California can't. No, all the homeless problem is your fault. Finally, McKinney-Vento federal homeless assistance funds. They go back to the 1970s. This isn't the first time we've seen homelessness. California had 30 to 50% of the homeless population. Guess how much money we got out of the official federal fund for homelessness? 11%. So you're a donor state and you lose $82 billion, And even when you have half the homelessness, you only get 11%. And then we suck the money out of you, and then we create a legal regime to prevent you from doing anything about it, and then we dump more people on you. And none of those problems get fixed at all, ever, with independence. New California will still be a donor state. They will still have people dumped on them, and they will still be under the control of the federal ruling, and there's nothing they can do about that as long as they continue to be part of the USA.
Again, I'll push back on that, because if we operate at the state level capacity as a sovereign state, and we have a good leader that is beholden to the Constitution, beholden to the people of the state, not the federal government, which every state is, like, again, we've seen it happen. We saw it happen in these last 2 terms with these 2 presidents. That's why you see the governors push back against whatever their edicts, mandates, policies were, because they understand that as a sovereign state, they could do that. That's their purview. They can do that. And there was nothing illegal about that constitutionally for them either. So all I'm saying is, as a new state, as a constitutional state, yes, I see what you're saying. We have, like, when we get these fires, right? We have all these, a handout, right? Okay, please, guys, please, federal government, please, Trump, please, Biden, can you help us out? Please. But if we pull away and 100% economically, financially, energy, all of it, politically, whether I get what you're saying, secession, and kind of being its independent territory, or New California state operating the way it's supposed to be as a true Republican government, we have the same ability to tell the federal government, no, we don't have to do that. And guess what? We don't need any assistance from you because we're self-sufficient.
I completely disagree on the understanding of the law.
Okay. That's all right.
No governor in America has ever been able to renegotiate federal tax rates, which is how you deal with the donor state issue. No governor in America has ever been able to say, I will outright deny a law passed by Congress, except for 1954 with Alabama. Literally nobody's tried it since then. You're talking about executive orders, not laws. And so what you're talking about has literally never happened in America ever.
There's always like we're doing now, right? There's always precedent. there's always you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, it'd have to have been done by somebody. There is no precedent. The last guy who tried to do this, Eisenhower sent troops against them. Nobody's tried it again.
But see, that again, I mean, we'll touch on that next, because I think we're going to touch military, and I got a big, I have my thoughts on that. I can't.
I'm muted. Sorry about that.
There you go.
2 more sections of questions here. Governance and political representation. How do your movements, we'll start with Marcus first. How do your movements propose to structure governance post-implementation? CalExit establishing a sovereign government potentially modeled after progressive policies versus New California creating a new state legislature to better represent conservative rural voices, and what mechanisms would ensure fair representation, address ideological divides, and handle transitions in areas like taxation, education, and healthcare? Marcus first, please.
So the answer that I give that kind of catches people off guard. I don't think we need to do much to be ready to be a nation. That catches people off guard. Couple facts. The California Constitution is larger than the American Constitution. Period. It's the 3rd largest constitution in the planet. It actually protects more rights than the American Constitution, although not gun rights. I'll give you that. But it protects rights to privacy, which is why we were able to pass certain laws to protect people when Congress can't. So you actually have more rights protected under the California Constitution.
Not medical rights either.
Not what?
Medical freedom
Sure.
rights.
You can mention things we don't have, and for everything you mention, I will still be able to say there are multiple rights protected in the California Constitution you do not have as an American citizen, period, end story. That's fact. When you have a large constitution and it does all these things, you have more protections. So a lot of people don't want to add to the Constitution. Jefferson said you should have a constitutional revision every 25 years. America's never done it once. California does it every 5 years. So France, Germany, England, the rest of the planet does this. America's the only one that can't do constitutional revisions, etc. When we're looking at acting as an independent country, Schwarzenegger, Brown, and Newsom, going back 20 years, all traveled the world and signed trade deals and treaties with foreign countries. Now, they call them memorandums of understanding on climate change, but they're treaties, and they signed trade deals. George W. Bush criticized Governor Schwarzenegger and said, only the president can do trade deals. Schwarzenegger didn't even respond and travel to Asia and did it anyways. Nobody in California had a problem with it. So our governors already travel the world, do trade deals and treaties. Every country already knows them. Remember, foreign direct investment #1. Finally, well, I'd also point out the political article. When Donald Trump was president last time, he was not very popular with Europe. So Jerry Brown would travel to Europe, and every year there would be 2 cars to meet Trump and 50 cars to meet the California governor in Germany, France, England, Poland, Liechtenstein, you name it. So much so Politico had to say, it's almost like California is a foreign country with its own policy and its own president, because they get 5 times the diplomatic response of America. But that's not alone. When Barack Obama was president, they had the Paris Climate Accords. Obama kept talking about that. There was a table for America and a separate table for California. No other nation had a separate table for just one of their states, but we did. So we're already recognized as an independent country. We already act like it, and we already have more rights. Additionally, bureaucracy is bad. I'm an ex-Republican. I don't think we need so much bureaucracy and taxes. Even if I become a liberal, I still think that's ridiculous. Taxes and regulations are overdone. That's why I back CalExit. When we're independent, 50% of your regulatory overhead is wiped out. Additionally, income taxes for all businesses can be lowered because we're not subsidizing 35 states at $82 billion. When I've talked to about 100 business owners, they say that would be an economic boom to have less business taxes and 50% of their regulations removed. Because California likes regulation, what's happened is we have a regulatory body for everything the federal government does. So if Iowa wanted to become an independent nation, they need to have a new Social Security Administration and health administration and this. We don't. For everything the federal government does, there's a separate California agency that does the same thing, even more hardcore. So separation means you remove the federal agencies and you still have this California agency. The only things we're not able to regulate right now are the dollar and military. So we don't need new agencies. We regulate everything on our own, and we already do a better job. We already act as independent. Our Constitution already protects us, and it's already better than the American Constitution. So I don't think we need to do that much.
All right, Paul, you want me to reread the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. Paul Reyes, New California. How do your movements, now New California, New State movement, how does New California propose creating a new state legislature that would better represent conservative voices in rural parts of the state, and of course liberals in the big cities, and what mechanism would ensure fair representation, address ideological divides, and handle transitions in areas like taxation, education, and healthcare?
Well, first of all, we already know in this current government, tyrannical government, that especially in California, the districts are just not the way they should be, and we're not represented the way we're supposed to be represented. We'd fix that first and foremost, and make sure that every area is represented correctly with the appropriate senators and representatives, assemblymen across the board, because we know that there's 2 major areas right now that overrepresent every California constituent: LA, the Bay. So, but and with that, I mean, I don't know where you guys are at, Marcus, on your front, but I mean, you know, I've been in this movement for over 2 years now, and I am an appointed assemblyman for Fresno, California. We have an active legislature, we have an active assembly, acting Senate, drafting resolutions, bills, and we have and we also have a reorganized government. I don't know how far you guys are on your end, but and we as a matter of fact, just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a statewide election where most of our counties did participate in. Now we have a principal election coming up this weekend as well. One day, one ballot, paper ballots, same day voting on our Constitution. So for our new California state Constitution,
Let's plug that. Paul, let's plug that real quick here. Tomorrow, yeah. New California state general election statewide tomorrow, August 2nd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yep. So, I mean, we already have the foundation laid. I mean, are we completely there yet? No, but that's, to me, that's what's needed. I mean, that's exactly the same template, the same steps that West Virginia utilized when they were able to successfully do what they did. And so, I don't know where where your organization and movement lie on that. How far, or what do you guys, or maybe you can't disclose that? I don't know.
I can disclose that. So we don't have that because that's illegal. Everything you've done, basically, I don't want to be mean, but it's basically meaningless under the law. So I've told Paul Preston this, I've told many people, you can't hold your own elections and say, well, they seem fair to us. So unless you have the official government on the official government documentations informing all of the public according to all state and all federal laws, those are not federal elections. I don't really want to debate it. So I just basically call
That's
that
all right. But then it does go back to Sam, when we are, when a tyrannical government, we have the ability to throw off a tyrannical government. And that's exactly, if you look back in history, that's exactly what happened with the inception and creation of our nation, and with what
That's what the
happened in West
Declaration
Virginia.
of Independence calls us to do.
Right, right.
Yeah, but I think you guys are missing out the point that the Declaration of Independence, and based upon the American Revolution, and then looking at Texas versus White, where they said secession is only legal through revolution or through consent of the states, the inherent part you're not mentioning is violence. So you're talking about, we have the right to do this and we have the right to do that. Again, you'll have to get the votes of all of California. You're probably not going to get that, and we can say no. I've had people say, well, what if California secedes and Jefferson doesn't want to play along? And I go, well, they'll have to. There's a thing called the sovereign citizens movement. They have the same idea. I don't want to do it. You can watch all sorts of videos of how well that goes with law enforcement. They always lose. And then if we go, oh, get your guns. Okay, well, good luck taking on the LA SWAT team. Now, I don't want to go there. I think that's unproductive and dumb. But I do want to point out, you can't just call your own government. And the West Virginia model, highly, highly irregular. There was a war going on. They did not ask the majority of the Virginians for permission, which is in the Constitution. Lincoln just basically shepherded it through with U.S. generals in an occupied country. Good luck having that stand up in court as an example, because you're basically going to have to say, although California has a guaranteed right to approve this, we're going to deny it because this guy violated the Constitution 150 years ago. That's at best highly dubious.
And I just go back to, again, history will speak for itself. And right now, history's on our side. It does. It is on our side.
Well, we think history's on our side. So
it's all right.
Well, we think when in 2016, when we got started, we were telling everybody this is Donald Trump's America, that he's not a fluke. A majority of Americans like him. They like that. This is who you're tied to. We were told, no, that's a lie. Hell no. Russia put him in. A minority of voters put him in. No, 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 no. A majority of Americans did not put him in, not even half, no more than 20%. I went to all the liberal protests here in California in all the major cities for 4 years. That's what everybody was saying. They were also saying the Republican Party will turn on him. They realize he's wrong. And they were also saying the federal system has checks and balances which could stop him. In 2024, 2025, when we got this new initiative approved, we had 10,000, 30,000 new members. And they all said, hey, I saw you in 2016. I thought that was crazy. And then he got elected again. And now I know this is Trump's America. A majority of Americans do back him. After 2 impeachments and 5 to 7 federal court trials all dropped, there's nothing you can stop with him. After he does an insurrection on January 6th and his popularity goes up, the Republican Party will not turn against him. And so in 2016, nobody was backing any things that we said. It was really tough. Now about 75% of California recognizes America doesn't like you. It's not your country. You don't share a culture with them, and absolutely nothing can be done to protect you, and the Republicans are not leaving him. So things have just gotten really good for us over time. That's why I say history's in our back. Finally, if we want to talk about fairness of the California government, I have to say that basically every political expert in America says that the 2011 redistricting event by California was the fairest the country's ever seen. There's even Democratic experts around the world who point to that, specifically the California 2011 redistricting. To hear that it's unfair when majority of scholars in America and around the planet who study democracy said it was one of the best examples of representation, I find that highly questionable.
Well, history is written by the victors.
Absolutely.
But
all right, guys, last section here, as we're at an hour and 30 minutes. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time today. Last section, this regarding national security, international relations. For CalExit, how would an independent California build its own military, secure borders, and form alliances without U.S. protection, potentially impacting bases like Camp Pendleton as one example? Go ahead there, Marcus. We kind of covered some of this, but brings it all back home. What about national security as California, as an independent nation, sovereign nation state? What is it going to do to defend against the evil Putin over there in Russia?
Yeah, so the first thing you got to recognize that America spends about 20 times more than the next 10 to 15 countries combined. So it doesn't have a normal military budget. It has a military budget that dwarfs everybody by leaps and bounds. It's basically historical. You got to go back about 1,000 to 2,000 years to the Roman Empire to see something comparable, or the British Empire around 1900. So
wow, that's a great comparison there. I like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about a normal military budget. For example, France, England, Canada, Spain, Russia, China, Japan, not pushover countries, not countries that are threatened every day.
The terrorism and Putin.
They're able to provide national security and not be bombed or attacked or threatened with the same level of security America's provided for the last 70 years for about 1/20th of the budget. That's a fact. So if we're looking at defense, we don't need to spend the amount America does. It goes way overboard. And I don't think we need 700 bases in about 200 countries. And we need to stick our nose in Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, Somalia. I think that's ridiculous and unnecessary. And so that we don't need any of that.
But Marcus, the Pentagon has never passed a financial audit.
Right. That's another reason. I'd also point out when we're talking about
9/11.
The fact is that after 9/11, California was dead set against the Iraq War. 75% of Californians said we don't want this. 75% of Americans said they do want the Iraq War. The Iraq War created ISIS. The largest ISIS terrorist attack after 9/11 happened in what state? California. So the war we were against, we got punished for. Guess who had the most number of dead boys and girls coming back? California, beyond Texas. Guess who did 2/3 of the protests against Iraq? California. So we're the most against these wars, and we get killed the most in body bags and terrorist attacks. Secondly, 9/11 happens. Homeland Security Director Michael Chertoff, aka Skeletor, that's what they call him, because of his face, and he said the most likely to be attacked after 9/11 was California, because of our numerous ports. In fact, it was the most likely to be attacked a second 9/11, he warned. The American government gave us 1/50th of the 9/11 protection money for the next half decade. It was so bad, Dianne Feinstein had to say, what, you want us to die of a nuclear attack? And then we raised taxes so that we could have nuclear radiation detectors in our ports so that we didn't all die. America did not give us the protection, and in fact, they exacerbated the issue. Now let's talk about North Korea. Donald Trump thought it was a good idea to get into a shouting match and call him Rocket Man. What's the first thing North Korea did? Release a video showing they have an ICBM that can reach California. So for all the good the American military does, I can show you many examples over the last 20 to 30 years where they go and start problems that weren't there. And then the first thing the bad guy does is go, I can touch California. So how is it good for me to look at you as my defender when you're constantly starting fights with all the biggest bullies in the block when you don't have to? And the first thing they do is not threaten you, but threaten me. Nobody would be part of that defensive pack. Secondly, let's talk about Russia and China. Did you know that for California's percentage of the U.S. military, it dwarfs the entire Russian military budget? If California was independent, with just the money we put in now, we're the third most resourced military in the planet. Most people don't even know that. So how's Russia going to attack us when they don't have as much money as us? The only person who could pull it off would be China. We're asking America for permission. America attacks us. They destroy their economy because of our trade relations, which would cause a World War 1930s level recession. So that's not going to happen. So really, you're just talking about what if China invades? The last overseas invasion by China was 1428. The only people who've done an overseas invasion and pulled it off ever was America in World War II, beaches of Normandy.
Right.
Russia didn't even try. Over 70 years of the Cold War, no one tried because it's really hard to do and it has high casualty rates. That's why only teams train for this. So who's going to pull it off? Someone who's never done it in 600 years and doesn't even have a navy to challenge us right off their coast? That's the only country you're talking about. We dwarf everybody else. Let's also talk about veterans. Who has the most active combat soldiers, veterans, and retired veterans from Vietnam by numbers? California. We dwarf America. Who has the most officers in the technological trades in the Navy and Air Force? California. Where do most of the engineers who create the missiles, cyber commands, satellite attacks, aircraft carriers, jet fighters, and all your technological edge come from? California. In fact, there was a thing called the base realignment and closure process. After the Cold War ended, Bill Clinton shut down a huge amount of American bases. They said we didn't need them. Guess what? California survived. And the thing was, the Pentagon had to admit when they were closing these bases, they told all the California engineers, you better move to Montana or this other state, or you're not going to have this contract. And every single engineer said, so what, I'll just find another job. The Pentagon had to put in their official Pentagon base realignment and closure after action report, oh my God, if we ever left California, we'd lose our technological superiority edge. And then we'd be vulnerable to Russia, China, and Iran. When you look at the Pentagon, and you can go back to 1955, they never say, oh no, China has more soldiers than us, we're doomed. What they say is, do they have an aircraft carrier? How many jets do they have? How many satellites? How many missiles? Can they reach us? That's all tech. America does not say that it's a strong military because it has a large number of humans, but because it has a global footprint with the best technology that can kill anybody dead. Right. You're completely dependent upon us for that. And we already told you 20 years ago, you can take it and we don't care. So you leave us, you're going to lose your technological edge and you're going to be the ones who lose wars. Secondly, China could only invade us. Why'd they do that if their economy is tied to us? That's called global economic collapse for them. Same thing with America. And we'd be bigger than Russia. And we have more combat troops than any other state. And the most protests against Vietnam were California. The most protests against the Iraq war, California. Most protests against the Afghan war, California. Guess who had the highest number of dead boys and girls? California, Vietnam, California, Iraq, California, Afghanistan. I'm here in Fresno. Fresno County had the highest number of high school students coming back in body bags. We had to see, oh, here's a memorial to this guy who just graduated, now he's dead, every freaking weekend in the newspaper. It was the highest rate in all of America. So we don't support these wars, and yet we die from them. We're threatened by American largesse. It doesn't protect us. We support the U.S. military, and they make more problems for us. And they would not be able to defend themselves against China, Russia, Iran, or even freaking Iraq if it wasn't for California engineers. So America has every reason to be nice to us and friendly because they need us just as much as we need them. It doesn't go one way or the other. And most people are not aware of those facts.
You're muted.
Sam, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Okay, Paul, as for New California, how would New California split affect the distribution of military assets and national defense responsibilities within the United States while maintaining federal alliances?
Okay, so I love this one. This is my passion, and this is my favorite one. And it'll be really simple. First of all, I agree with everything you said, Marcus. We have no business. I'm tired. I did it. My grandfather did it. I'm over it. I'm tired of fighting rich man's wars and sacrificing our brothers and sisters. Okay, so I do agree. But as a constitutional separate state, we still can control that. And to me, if it was up to me, I'm not speaking for the movement definitively. I'm just saying if it was up to me, it's a simple thing. I would take all of the federal troops, the federally controlled bases, and I would, as a governor, remove them and transition them over to the National Guard, state National Guard, or California militia. I would not have any longer any federal troops in our state. The reason being is technically the federal government should not have a standing army. It should be every state with their militaries, right, in a state of conflict, brings their standing militaries together and fights as the union. That's how it's supposed to be. So if I were the governor, I would say federal troops, all you guys get out of here. If you transition over to I guess you'd have to reaffirm your oath to the state of California and transition over to the state National Guard or state military, New California State Military, however it would be transitioned over. So it'd be very similar to what maybe CalExit or a freestanding nation would be, and it is very easy to me to do that. So, but I would just, first and foremost, just take over every military base and military operations on the state level, and get the federal troops out. That right there to me would clear up a lot. And then, just refrain from joining the federal cause, the rich man's wars. I mean, hey, we don't have to. We just have tyrannical governors that are beholden to the federal government because of APAC and lobbyists and all these other non-governmental organizations. You know where I'm going with this, guys. So corruption is the main thing. Corruption, and I do believe. And listen to Marcus. My heart is with you. Again, I truly believe we want the same thing. It's just different ways, man. The best of luck to your endeavors. And that's all. But yeah, that's how I would handle that situation militarily.
All right, thank you, Paul. Let's see here. Do we have any questions from the audience now? We reached the end of our pre-scripted questions there.
Could I respond real quick?
Go ahead, Marcus.
So I agree. Foreign war is bad. We don't need that. We should get out of it. Thank you for serving. By the way, we have a ton of Marines in CalExit, and they all became CalExit supporters after they came back. Just saying.
Can't blame them.
New CEO is a veteran. And I was just talking to another veteran that we brought on, and half of our staff is vets, and they have the same opinion as you. So they're proud of their service, but they don't believe what they were doing was necessary.
Right.
And, the other half of it is that this isn't against the veterans. I want to be very clear about that. I was talking to a National Guard guy, and he got upset, and I go, look, if people in California thought America was working, we'd have no support. It's that people feel that the America they thought they knew, at least 75% of Californians, isn't there anymore. And so you fought and were willing to die to protect a country that everybody wants. They just don't think it's there. So this isn't against the vets. We want the thing we thought you were protecting us from. So I want to be very clear. But a governor cannot force out the military or the bases. Can't be done. And so, I'll disagree with that and say that, again, when we're talking about reducing federal bureaucracy and taxes, it can only happen with CalExit. Getting rid of the U.S. military can only happen with CalExit. New California would still allow those problems to be there. We don't have to agree, but that would be my rebuttal.
And I just will say we wouldn't allow that. So, yep.
How would you not allow that?
I just said it. Sovereign state. Good governor, beholden to the Constitution and the people of the state. He has the power.
Can you name a governor who kicked out federal bases and directly refuted federal law in the last 60 years?
Oh, no, I can't. Okay.
All right, gentlemen. It doesn't look like the audience has any questions, as we're very California specific on this broadcast, and we're usually global, as the map behind me here. So final words, Marcus, and then we'll go to final words from Paul and wrap it up here.
I'm glad to see Latinos participating in politics. I wrote the book because I was a boy and told me that, we're dumb and we can't do intellectual stuff. I remember being told that. I remember being told, oh, you speak Spanish, you're not going to be able to handle it. And you guys really, you're good at lawn care and stuff like that. And so to actually see, I'm not joking, man. It's not a pretty thing to tell a 13 to 15-year-old. It kind of screws with your worldview and makes you think you're a second-class citizen. That's not a good look for keeping people loyal to that country, to be told you'll never get what the other people do and just suck it up. Bad idea for building patriotism, loyalty. That was the first 3 decades of my life. So I do think it's awesome that we're having this discussion and that it was the two of us doing it. This doesn't happen. I'm not used to seeing this. And even if we disagree, I view this as progress. This doesn't happen, Sam. There isn't many shows where they go, we got a Latin intellectual versus another Latin intellectual to explain to everyone in California how it is. Name the other time that's ever happened. I can't think of one. So I'm supportive of that. I think this is great. I think this is a sign of progress. And I love the fact, Sam, that you love California so much. You supported diversity and you made your hair look just like Governor Newsom's. I get it. I get it. That's your homage to California. Oh, I wasn't supposed to call you out? Okay.
Paul, final thoughts here as we wrap up this great debate.
No, I just appreciate you having it, and I'm what they call a rebel with a cause. I'm anti-government, anti-establishment, not a politician. I'm just a public servant and a civilian that I'm tired of all of it. I'm tired of this the state-run tyranny. I'm tired of all the federal government. I think truly this is just me speaking. We need to start over fresh everywhere, every state government, and especially the federal government. It all needs to be abolished, thrown off, and created anew. All of it. This is why we're at where we're at. I don't care if it's red or blue. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. So, but the best way for me, in my opinion, to do that is at the state level. If states can clear house at the state level, as the government is supposed to operate as a republic, now you have control over we have control with say in the federal side of things. So we need to get rid of the Federal Reserve. People just need to learn about that stuff. But yeah, I do agree with Marcus. I was expecting something different. I was expecting something. I didn't know what to expect because again, I'm not in politics, man. I mean, maybe I guess I am a little bit now, but expecting argumentative and demonstrative in nature. But I do appreciate your professionalism and it's cool. Again, I agree with the progress. I mean, I think we agreed more on things than we didn't. So, but yeah, there are ways forward out of this, and let the people choose from here which way do you want to go. So, appreciate it.
All right, we'll leave it there.
Let me plug both websites for you guys here. For more information on CalExit, here's their website, CalExit, calexitnow.org, and a very nice professional website there, Marcus. And go there for more information about CalExit if you're interested in the California independence movement at calexitnow.org. And then the new state of California, their website right here, pretty professional, pretty nice looking website as well, I might add.
Doesn't have the funding of CalExit though.
Their website is newcaliforniastate.com. And if you're interested in that movement and trying to create a 51st state here in California, go check them out. I would recommend checking out both, and so you get both sides of the debate there, and you can make a more educated opinion about where you fall here now. And so that's the job here of Weaponized News, to bring this information for those that don't know that these things are even happening here in this state. We don't all just love the government tyranny. People are trying to do some stuff. But as Marcus has pointed out, the media is not going to tell you about any of this because they're happy with the status quo right now, the way things are. And the majority out there are not. But we got to break through that electronic Berlin Wall that's been put up around us by your mainstream corporate media here in this country. And with that, thank you again, both you gentlemen. Thought a very professional and respectful debate there, and we do appreciate it here at Weaponized News, trying to spread the ideas out there, get you thinking that we can do something different indeed, and don't have to just keep going along to get along and the status quo, as not many people are happy. Trump now, I think he's done. I don't know what he's going to do, but he's totally blown the whole Epstein thing and lost a lot of support here now. And the never-ending wars too. His never-ending support of war for Israel is just beyond the pale as well. And so I do believe his base that's causing it to fracture right now. I don't think he cares. He's a lame duck. And so he's going to do whatever the agenda is, which definitely looks like moving us toward scientific dictatorship, technocracy. And be aware of that is all going on right now. And so with that, I'm going to wrap up this broadcast. As always, everybody do your own research. Peace, love, and freedom. Speak out and take action. Have a great rest of your Friday evening and weekend. And